All right, little technical difficulty there, but we are now diving into the upcoming season for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who won the NFC South in 2023 and are hoping to have similar success this year. And they feel confident, at least internally, in being able to do so because they brought back their quarterback, Baker Mayfield, on a new 3-year, $100 million contract, which was a lot of money. But at the same time, Baker Mayfield definitely earned it based off of his performance last year, putting together a career season and sort of flawlessly, sliding into this role in Tampa Bay, where post Tom Brady, they had a lot of question marks at the position. And Baker Mayfield, is he elite? No, but he is more than capable of getting the job done. And not only did he lead them to a division title last year, they even won a playoff game. And I think that Baker Mayfield deserves a ton of credit for the level of adversity that he's been through these past few seasons after playing through an injury in his final season in Cleveland and them end up discarding him for Deshaun Watson of all people. And then bouncing around for a couple years, ending up in Tampa Bay and throwing for a career-high 4,000 yards, 28 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. I was very impressed by what Baker Mayfield was able to produce last season, and I think he can give you similar production this upcoming year. Now, it is important to note, possibly, that there is an out in his contract after this upcoming season. So if we see Baker is a flash in the pan, the Buccaneers could potentially move off of him, but I don't think that this is how it's going to play out. I think that Baker is more than capable of continuing to at least play out the next 3 years with Tampa Bay. But overall here, when you look at this offense, ended up being fine numbers last year. Passing game 17th, so when you talk about Baker Mayfield, definitely does deserve credit. Again, though, it's not like it was this unbelievable offensive juggernaut led by Baker Mayfield last season. But either way, you'll take that level of production. But the biggest concern with their offense is the lack of a real run game. And I think that's going to be the case once again this upcoming year, where Rachaad White is a nice receiving back, but I don't know how many people are putting stock into him in terms of being a true every down running back and can get it done in the trenches. Rachaad White's a fine player, don't get me wrong, but we see 32nd in rush yards per game last year. That is dead last, and you're running into it with a very similar running back room that isn't all that talented. Outside of Rachaad White, I'm not too familiar with the names of Bucky Irving and Sean Tucker. They do have Chase Edmonds, who's currently dealing with an injury. Maybe he provides a spark for them when he ends up getting fully healthy. But again, still not a very good rush attack. Offensive line is fine. Going to be really interesting to see Graham Barton, their first-round draft selection. He's going to be playing immediately for them and manning the middle at center. So he's going to have a lot of expectations in this upcoming year. If I'm not mistaken, they did just re-up Tristan Wirfs on a new contract. Let me know in the comment section whether or not I'm wrong on that one. But I'm pretty sure I saw that they re-upped Tristan Wirfs, who is one of the best young left tackles in the game. So they have their blindside guy. They could have their man in the middle if Barton ends up panning out for them. But it's still, kind of a lot to ask of some young players. Specifically, Barton is the one I'm looking at. But I think that they could definitely be capable of it. This is a Buccaneers team that's probably league average in terms of offensive line. So we'll ultimately see how that pans out for them. They were really bad in the run game last year. They were last in ESPN's run block win rate. So that's where you need to see the Buccaneers improve this upcoming season if their offense is going to take the next step. But, we'll see whether or not that does end up panning out. But defensively, again, kind of a mediocre group. This is a team that, again, you're talking about the NFC South, which was wide open last year. I think it's very open once again this upcoming season. But defense was fine. I do think that they have a lot of intriguing pieces, especially on the younger end in that front seven. We already know about Vita Vea, of course, but Kalijah Cansey, their 2023 first-round pick, Yaya Diaby emerged for them, and I think he is due for a spectacular breakout season this upcoming year. So I can get behind their front seven. They do lose Devin White, but at that point, I don't think that that's a massive loss for them. Levante David still holding it down for them. Getting up there an edge, though, so we'll have to see about that. They were very good against the run last year, and I think that that's on the table once again. Now, they bring back Antoine Winfield on a new deal in the secondary. Ultimately, it's a fine secondary, but I definitely don't have all that much confidence in them being all that much better than what they were last year, which was 29th in the league in passing defense. Now, getting some more pressure up front with the emergence of Diaby and Cansey could definitely help put pressure on opposing quarterbacks and add to, give your secondary some help in terms of you don't have to hang in there quite as long. But I don't really see all that much upside with this secondary, at least for 2023. Again, you at least have a guy back there and a very real guy and one of the best safeties in the league in Antoine Winfield. Outside of that, though, pretty underwhelming group, which means I think that they are going to be susceptible against the pass once again. Looking at their season, I think that ultimately, it's middle of the pack in terms of strength of schedule. I think the first part of their schedule could be very tough for them. In Detroit, week 2, facing Philadelphia at home week 4, road games against Atlanta and New Orleans, home against the Ravens, and week 9 as well, going to Kansas City and then following that up with a game at home against San Francisco. The first half of this schedule, I think, is very difficult for the Buccaneers, and I could see them struggling out of the gates. But where this season is going to be won or lost for them is during this final stretch of the year, where there are so many winnable games there, where you're playing the Giants, you play the Panthers, the Raiders, the Chargers. You play the Panthers twice, actually, post the Week 11 bye week. So those are games the Buccaneers are going to need to clean up on if they want a chance to win this division. Their over-under line is set at 8.5 games, and I have them going slightly over at 9-8, would actually match their record from last year. And that would map out the way that I view the NFC South this year, that they would be right below the Atlanta Falcons for the 2024 NFC South title. I think that ultimately it's not a great division, but the Falcons, the Buccaneers, and the Saints are all teams that can go out and punch you in the mouth any given week, and I don't think that any of them are rollover outings. Last year we saw the Buccaneers win this division with 9 wins, but the Falcons were at 7. The Saints also, I believe, had 9. So, it was congested up at the top of this division. Sorry, Carolina. I just don't think that this is the year that they're able to sort of reassert themselves into contention. But I think that I do have the Falcons end up winning this division, and that could leave the Buccaneers out of the playoffs altogether based off of how the NFC ends up shaking out. But that being said, I want to further dive into what are the teams that won the division last season and could potentially be due for some big-time regression. So we will be diving into that. But first, before we do so, going to be taking our next break. Do not go anywhere. We will be right back.